Hi everyone, welcome to this video series. My name is RJ, and in this series we're going to be going over the material for EE 151 at Cal Poly, and that's the Intro to Electrical Engineering Lab. Here I've got the Canvas page opened up for our course. Um, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Canvas, if you go to canvas.calpoly.edu, you should be able to sign in with your student credentials and get logged in and see a list of all of the courses that you're enrolled in that have their Canvas page published at least. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at section 5. That's my Wednesday section from 6 to 9 p.m. And we're just going to walk through some of this course information real quick. Um, so under this module 0, we have all these different files. We're going to go through the syllabus first. So here's the syllabus. This is just the catalog description. This is for fall 2025. And here's some of my information. So my name's RJ Makaranis. Um, I'll be hosting office hours in the student project lab, I think. So that's building 20, room 111. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the numbering scheme of buildings on campus, Building 20 is Engineering East, which is where all of the electrical engineering labs are located. So I haven't quite figured out my office hours, but I'll update that once I know. My cell phone is 562-234-7091. You're welcome to call or text me at that number. And then I've also listed my email there for you to, if you want to email me. So then there's just this meeting information. So section 5 will be meeting on Wednesdays from 6 to 9 p.m. in room 20, uh, in building 20, room 126. And my Thursday section, section 9, will be meeting from 6 to 9 p.m. in that same room. And then just going over some of the required material. So first off, this Elegoo Mega R3 kit. We'll be going through and using all of the little components that are available in this kit, as a means for exploring electrical engineering concepts. And of course, you can continue to use this development board, for future projects outside of this course. Um, it's yours to keep. And it comes in at about 65, $66. It's a really good deal, actually. If you were to buy direct from the actual distributor of Arduino boards, I think these mega boards are usually around $30 in and of itself. So having all of this available to us will be pretty good at $65. And then just going through some of the suggested material. So it would be good to have a tool bag or a toolbox to carry equipment around, not just for this course, but for future labs when you're bringing your circuits around. It's usually good to have some kind of tool bag. I would also recommend a soldering station. This is one of the better soldering stations that I've found online, just by digging through various forum posts. This seems to have kind of like the most stuff for the cheapest price point, and it's actually really good quality too, apparently. I haven't gotten one myself, but I've gotten one for some of my students that are doing research for me. Um, so there's that. It's got the soldering station, it's got a little spool to clean the soldering iron. It's got the soldering iron and its various tips, and then kind of a grounding plug so that you can make sure that your equipment is tied to kind of like an earth ground, to prevent discharging and breaking the electronic devices. So on that note, also having helping hands if you buy a soldering station would be useful just so that you can hold up the equipment while you solder. And then also an ESD safe soldering mat. So these are usually temperature resistant to make sure that you're not, accidentally touching the iron to a wooden surface and making burn marks. So it's good to have this. And again, they come with grounding straps, so they help you protect your electronic devices just in general. So if you're ever at home, working on your electronics labs, it's good to have this lying around. So next up, the multimeter. I'd recommend, just buying yourself a handheld multimeter. These are nice to have around. Again, in case you're building circuits up at home. So we'll be using multimeters in the lab, and each bench in our lab is equipped with a benchtop multimeter, which is a little bit bigger than this and has a little bit more functionality. But this is good to have lying around, if you have the budget for it. It's just helpful. And lastly, this is the Analog Discovery 3 Pro bundle. So we do get academic pricing on it, 15% off. And so it's a little bit pricey, right? $409, but this is a pretty incredible little device, actually. It has, you know, kind of at a high level, every single benchtop equipment that we'll be using in the lab, kind of like at this $400 price point. And just to give you some context, each lab bench that we have is probably on the order of ten to $20,000 worth of equipment. Um, Here we have it kind of lists out somewhere. Well, anyway, so it's got a power supply. Um, it's got function generator, a two-channel oscilloscope, um, and I think 16-ish logic digital logic channels, just for analyzing communication protocols. Um, so again, this is a really, really budget-friendly piece of equipment that's really helpful later on in your classes when you're, actually building up circuits and, um, you know, being in the student project lab kind of gets busy towards the end of the quarter, and maybe you just need to troubleshoot something. Um, so I'd recommend that eventually, at some point in your career, you pick up one of these Analog Discovery 3s. Be good. Um, and lastly, just wanted to mention the grading scale. So we don't have A pluses at Cal Poly, but an A gives you like a 4.0, so that's from 93 to 110. A minus from 90 to 93, B plus 87 to 90, and so on and so forth. So this is pretty standard grading scale. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Um, so that's the syllabus. Now let's quickly go over the schedule here. Um, so here I've outlined all of the different topics that going to be going over, as well as given some pre-lab assignments and extra credit. So the idea with the pre-lab assignments is that you should complete them before meeting in lab the next week, right? So this pre-lab assignment for week 0, introducing yourself, and purchasing the Elegoo kit should be completed before we meet during week 1, right? So this is week 0, because classes technically start on Thursday, September 18th. But I've gone ahead and decided that we're not gonna meet that week because it would be kind of awkward for the Wednesday section to be kind of like a week behind there. Um, so there's that, right? And so just to give you, kind of like a brief overview of all this stuff, all of these lab activity topics cover most of what you would be covering, over the course of 4 years here in your undergraduate electrical engineering program. We'll be giving little demonstrations and participating in lab activities just to demonstrate some of the topics and learn, um, and hopefully guide you towards concentrations. So in the last, in weeks 5 to 7 here, we're going to be taking a closer look into the different concentrations. So we have signals, power, RF microwaves, and photonics. And if you don't already know, those are the main three concentrations that we've got listed, that you're able to kind of like specialize in and take a bunch of um, technical electives to have that concentration listed out on your degree when you graduate. So that's the schedule. And then what else do I have here? So this is just a discussion forum to introduce yourself to the class. Pretty straightforward. I list out kind of like the instructions and kind of like the bare minimum of what you should include for, full credit or um and then there's a lab safety agreement. So let's just walk through this really quickly. So you're to download this onto your machine and kind of sign it and upload, your signature onto Canvas. And I just need this on record before we start using the actual equipment in the lab, just to make sure that everyone is aware of these safety rules. So obviously, if there's an emergency, call 911. Um, no bare feet, that's a big one. So you should be bringing closed-toed shoes into the lab, or wearing closed-toed shoes rather. Make sure that you don't have open-toed shoes. I'm technically supposed to send you home if you're wearing, flip-flops or not wearing shoes at all. We're not supposed to be eating or drinking in the lab. Um, if you need to eat or drink, I'd step outside into the hallway. There's no kind of like attendance requirement. I'm not monitoring you to make sure that you're in the lab at all times. Um, Jewelry, just kind of. So I'm not going to go through all of this. Make sure you read it and kind of like reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. I guess there's one thing to note here. We're not using anything more than probably 10 volts. So you can kind of disregard this statement about 10,000 volts. We're not working with lasers or microwave radiation, in this lab at least. And we're not going to be etching printed circuit boards. So don't worry about any of that. But it is something to keep in mind, for later labs. So that's the safety agreement. And then lastly, there's a quiz here, just meant as like a knowledge check. You're welcome to use any resources on that quiz, and I kind of make that statement if once you open it up here, kind of like in the student view. Yeah, so it says, just answer these to the best of your ability, and you're welcome to use any reference material. Just don't give someone the answers. That goes for quizzes in general. Just try your best. It should be pretty easy, I think. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I wanted to cover in this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.